Was sitting on my bed, studying for an exam, when I heard the faint creak of the door. My stepfather, Jason, entered my room without knocking. At first, I didn't think much of it. He had done that before, acting like a father figure, albeit a bit too casual for my liking. But this time, something I felt different. He stood there for a moment, his gaze lingering on me more than usual. There was an awkward silence, the kind that makes you feel like the air is too thick to breathe. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice shaky. The moment I asked, I regretted it. Jason had always been a distant yet caring presence in our home. His charm and ease had helped my mother cope with the loss of my father, but something about this interaction felt unsettling. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer. The tension was palpable. "Are you sure everything's okay?" he repeated, his voice now lower, a strange softness lacing his words. I froze. My heart raced. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. He reached out, brushing his hand lightly over the back of my head, a move that felt too intimate. It wasn't the touch of a stepfather. I recoiled instinctively, but he didn't seem to notice. Or perhaps he didn't care. The room felt suffocating. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this some kind of misreading? Did he not realize how inappropriate this was? Or was I imagining things? But no, this was real. This was something I had never experienced before. The betrayal I felt wasn't just physical, it was emotional and psychological. The person who was supposed to protect me, who was supposed to be a stable figure in my life, had crossed a line that was impossible to erase. I could see the flicker of guilt in his eyes, as if he knew he'd gone too far but wasn't ready to admit it. I wanted to scream, to run away, but I didn't know where to go. My emotions were a whirlwind of anger, confusion, and fear. "Jason, what are you doing?" I whispered, my voice trembling. My eyes were wide with disbelief, but his expression showed nothing, no remorse, just a strange calmness, as if this was somehow normal for him. He backed away slowly, as though realizing he had done something irreversible. "I'm sorry," he muttered, and then he left the room, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. The shock of it all left me numb. My emotions were a tangled mess. I couldn't talk to my mom, not yet. How could I? She was still so emotionally dependent on him. He had become her rock after my dad's passing. The secret I was now burdened with felt too heavy. I knew this wasn't just a one-time mistake. Something darker lurked beneath the surface, something that could destroy my family if it ever came to light. The following days were filled with tension. Jason acted as if nothing had happened, as if his intrusion into my life and my room wasn't something that would haunt me forever. I couldn't shake the feeling that there were more secrets between us, buried deep within the facade of a blended family. And so, I was left with a painful realization: the trust one had in my stepfather was shattered, and the complicated web of emotions and secrets that now entangled us all would only grow more intricate as time went on. Emotional betrayal is one of the most devastating forms of hurt in any relationship, especially in familial contexts where trust is supposed to be foundational. The moment a person we care about and rely on crosses emotional boundaries, it leaves an indelible mark on our psyche. This betrayal becomes even more complex when it involves a parent figure, such as a stepfather, who is expected to nurture and protect. When that person's actions stray from the ethical lines of a parental relationship, it creates an overwhelming sense of confusion and grief. For someone who has emotionally invested in the trust placed in a parent, the betrayal feels more profound because it cuts through the very fabric of that bond. It isn't just about physical infidelity, it's about the violation of emotional safety and the feelings of security that one should be able to expect from a parental figure. In the case of a stepfather, the situation becomes even more complicated. Unlike a biological parent, a stepfather may already be viewed through a lens of unfamiliarity or suspicion. As a child or a teenager, the emotional attachment to this figure can be a slow process, one that requires proving their place in the family and earning trust over time. It's a delicate balance, one that involves mutual respect and understanding of boundaries. When the stepfather becomes the source of emotional betrayal, it's not just an act of unfaithfulness, it's the destruction of the fragile trust that was painstakingly built over time. The person who should have been a protector, someone to guide and care for the child, has instead become the instigator of the very pain they were meant to prevent. This emotional betrayal disrupts the safety net of the family and leaves the victim feeling isolated, hurt, and conflicted. The emotional impact of betrayal by a stepfather is often compounded by feelings of guilt and shame. A child might feel responsible for what has happened, questioning whether they had somehow encouraged the inappropriate behavior or wondering if they did something to provoke it. This internal conflict can lead to self-doubt, as they try to reconcile their emotional attachment to their stepfather with the reality of the betrayal. It becomes hard to understand why someone they trusted, someone they may have even grown to love like a real father, would cause them so much pain. It forces the individual into a labyrinth of conflicting emotions: love, anger, confusion, guilt, and fear. These feelings don't simply disappear, they linger and shape the victim's emotional well-being in profound ways. At the same time, there is often a sense of powerlessness. The victim may feel trapped, unable to escape or speak out, especially when there are layers of secrecy surrounding the betrayal. The individual might fear retaliation or worry about the repercussions of exposing the truth. The fear of destroying the family dynamic or hurting a biological parent who may be emotionally dependent on the stepfather makes it even harder to confront the betrayal. The emotional attachment to the family unit and the desire to preserve its integrity can paralyze someone, keeping them silent while the emotional toll grows heavier. The more they suppress their feelings, the more isolated they become, as the emotional pain festers beneath the surface. Moreover, emotional betrayal often leads to long-term consequences for the victim's ability to trust others. When someone who is supposed to provide unconditional love and protection breaks that trust, it colors the victim's perception of all future relationships. They may develop a fear of being vulnerable, afraid that opening themselves up to others could lead to further betrayal. The emotional scars from the experience don't easily fade, and the victim may carry these wounds for years, influencing how they interact with others, form relationships, and build their own sense of self-worth. Ultimately, emotional betrayal by a stepfather is not just an incident, it's an event that reshapes the very foundation of trust and security in a family. It challenges the victim's understanding of love, loyalty, and emotional safety, leaving them to navigate the complexities of their emotions in the aftermath. The complexity of family dynamics becomes particularly evident when infidelity or emotional betrayal occurs within the home, especially when it involves a stepfather and a child. Family structures are fragile systems built on mutual trust, respect, and shared experiences, and when these dynamics are disrupted, it can lead to a deep sense of confusion and emotional turmoil. In a traditional family, roles are more clearly defined. Parents provide care, guidance, and protection, while children look to them for support and safety. However, when a new figure like a stepfather enters the equation, the existing structure is immediately altered. This new family member may be well-meaning, but their presence inherently shifts the balance of relationships and forces everyone to adjust to a new normal. For the child, this adjustment can be especially difficult. A stepfather may be viewed with skepticism or resentment at first, as they are stepping into a role that previously belonged to another person, often a biological father. The child may struggle to accept this new figure in their life, feeling conflicted between loyalty to their biological parent and the need to form a relationship with the new person in their home. It's not uncommon for children to resist this change, rejecting the stepfather's attempts to bond or imposing emotional distance to protect themselves. Over time, however, the stepfather may earn the child's trust, showing care, responsibility, and involvement. The child might begin to view him as a father figure, especially if the biological father is absent or emotionally distant. This emotional investment in the stepfather creates a bond that, while not biological, feels real and important. However, when infidelity or emotional betrayal comes into play, these carefully constructed family dynamics are violently disrupted. A stepfather's infidelity, whether emotional or physical, shatters the sense of safety and trust that the child had built with him. The emotional investment that was previously made in the relationship now feels like a lie, leaving the child feeling betrayed and vulnerable. This betrayal can happen in various forms. A stepfather may make inappropriate advances toward the child, develop an emotional relationship that crosses boundaries, or even engage in actions that threaten the family unit's stability. Regardless of the form, the child's trust is violated, not only by a figure who was meant to protect them but also by someone who had grown to be seen as a dependable presence in their life. The sense of betrayal cuts deep because it often involves someone who was once viewed as a father figure, creating a sense of cognitive dissonance. The child now has to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the reality of the betrayal, which can be a harrowing emotional journey. The emotional complexity is further amplified by the role the biological parent plays in these family dynamics. The biological mother, often emotionally tied to the stepfather, may be unaware of the betrayal or may choose to ignore it, perhaps out of fear of disrupting the family or because of her own emotional investment in her partner. This creates an additional layer of tension and confusion for the child, who may feel caught between loyalty to their mother and the pain of betrayal by someone who has become an integral part of their family. The child might hesitate to expose the betrayal, fearing that doing so will cause irreparable harm to the family and force their mother to choose between her partner and her child. The emotional weight of keeping such a secret often exacerbates the child's inner turmoil, leading to feelings of isolation, confusion, and helplessness. Furthermore, when a stepfather's betrayal is revealed or suspected, it can cause a ripple effect within the family. Family members may take sides, leading to further emotional fragmentation. The mother, torn between the person she loves and the child she is meant to protect, may feel guilty, angry, or confused. The child, on the other hand, may struggle with guilt, shame, and self-doubt, questioning their own actions and whether they somehow contributed to the situation. As family members grapple with these emotions, the home becomes a battleground for conflicting loyalties and feelings, where the bonds of trust and love are tested in painful ways. The tension in these family dynamics often leads to a deep sense of emotional conflict, with everyone involved trying to navigate their emotions while dealing with the fallout of the betrayal. The child is left to make sense of their feelings towards a figure who was once a source of emotional security, but now represents something far more complicated. The child must also grapple with the realization that their trust in the family structure itself has been broken, leading them to question the authenticity of relationships and their understanding of love, protection, and loyalty. These complicated emotions, fueled by betrayal and conflict, can leave lasting scars, affecting the individual's future relationships and their ability to trust others. Internal conflict and self-doubt are often the most harrowing emotional consequences of betrayal, especially when the person responsible for the betrayal is someone within the family. When a child or teenager experiences infidelity or emotional betrayal at the hands of a stepfather, they are thrust into an emotional storm that challenges their sense of self and their understanding of relationships. The victim may struggle to reconcile their conflicting feelings toward the person who has betrayed them. On one hand, there may still be residual affection or emotional attachment to the stepfather, especially if the relationship was built over time and nurtured with care. On the other hand, the knowledge of the betrayal can create an overwhelming sense of anger, confusion, and pain. The victim is left to navigate these intense emotions, trying to make sense of the situation and the person involved. The emotional complexity of this internal conflict becomes even more pronounced when the victim feels guilty or responsible for the betrayal. Many individuals who have been betrayed will question themselves, wondering if they somehow encouraged the behavior or did something to cause it. This self-blame is common, particularly when the stepfather's actions are more subtle or emotionally manipulative. A child who has been emotionally betrayed might wonder if their own actions, such as seeking affection or attention, played a role in the betrayal. The ambiguity of the situation makes it difficult to see the stepfather's actions as purely a result of his own shortcomings, leading the victim to internalize the blame. This self-doubt can erode the victim's sense of worth, leaving them questioning their ability to judge people or their capacity to understand relationships. As the victim grapples with the emotional fallout of betrayal, they may also experience a profound sense of shame. The idea of being betrayed by a stepfather, someone they trusted and viewed as a father figure, can make the victim feel as though they are somehow flawed or unworthy of love and respect. Shame often emerges when someone feels they have been violated in some way, whether physically, emotionally, or psychologically. This feeling can be exacerbated by the victim's reluctance to confide in others, such as a biological parent, for fear of not being believed or of causing further harm to the family. The secrecy surrounding the betrayal can compound feelings of shame, as the victim is forced to carry the burden alone. The fear of judgment or misunderstanding can make it even harder for the individual to seek the support they need to process their emotions. In addition to guilt and shame, the victim is likely to experience deep confusion and a sense of betrayal that shakes their entire understanding of trust and security. A stepfather, by nature of his role, is supposed to be someone who offers protection, guidance, and love. When that role is compromised by infidelity or emotional manipulation, the victim is left questioning the authenticity of the relationship. The emotional attachment that was once built on trust now feels like a lie, and the individual may struggle to understand why the stepfather would break that trust. They may search for answers or explanations, but the lack of clarity around the motives of the betrayer only deepens the emotional disarray. The victim may be left wondering if they were ever truly loved or if their stepfather was only pretending to be someone he was not. The disillusionment that follows can affect the way the individual views all their future relationships, causing them to approach trust with caution and suspicion. The internal conflict is further complicated by the victim's loyalty to the rest of the family, especially the biological parent. The child may feel torn between their loyalty to their mother, who may still be emotionally dependent on the stepfather, and the pain of their own betrayal. If the biological parent is unaware of the betrayal, the victim may feel trapped in a cycle of silence, afraid to expose the truth for fear of shattering the family dynamic. This fear of causing harm to the family unit can create a profound sense of isolation, as the victim struggles to keep the secret while simultaneously trying to process the emotional turmoil they are experiencing. The victim may find themselves in an emotional tug-of-war, trying to protect their mother and preserve the family structure, even as they are deeply hurt by the person she trusts. In the midst of all this internal turmoil, self-doubt becomes a key factor that prolongs the victim's emotional suffering. The victim may feel uncertain about how to handle the situation, whether to confront the stepfather, tell their mother, or simply try to forget what happened. This uncertainty only deepens the emotional confusion, making it harder to move forward. The inability to find resolution or closure leads to a prolonged emotional struggle, as the victim feels trapped in a cycle of questioning, doubting, and rehashing the same painful emotions over and over. The result is a kind of emotional paralysis, where the victim cannot fully heal or move forward without first addressing the complex web of conflicting feelings that come with such a deep betrayal. Hidden secrets and tension within a family unit often emerge when infidelity or emotional betrayal occurs, and these secrets have the power to disrupt the delicate balance of trust and relationships. When a stepfather betrays the emotional or physical boundaries of a familial relationship, the consequences extend far beyond the initial act of betrayal. The secrecy surrounding the event becomes a force in itself, influencing every interaction, every conversation, and every emotional connection within the family. These hidden truths often fester beneath the surface, causing a subtle but powerful tension that is felt by everyone involved. It's not just the victim who suffers from the weight of the secret, but the entire family dynamic is affected, whether or not all members are aware of the betrayal. In the case of a child or teenager discovering that a stepfather has violated their trust, the first impulse is often to keep the secret hidden. Fear of the repercussions, fear of being blamed, or even fear of the family falling apart can compel the victim to remain silent. In the beginning, the victim might rationalize the situation, convincing themselves that it was an isolated incident, that it was their fault, or that revealing the truth could cause irreparable harm. These internalized fears create an environment of secrecy that is difficult to break. The burden of keeping such a significant truth hidden often leads to emotional distress, as the victim is forced to carry the weight of the knowledge without being able to express their feelings to anyone. The secrecy isolates them, making it harder to cope with the emotional pain of betrayal. What should be an open and safe environment becomes fraught with silent tension, as the victim hides their pain while others around them remain unaware of the underlying emotional turmoil. The secrecy of the betrayal can also have a profound impact on the victim's ability to trust other people. When the truth is kept hidden, the individual must constantly monitor their words and actions to ensure that no one discovers what has happened. The fear of someone uncovering the truth creates an ongoing emotional strain that is difficult to shake. This fear can extend to all other relationships in the victim's life, causing them to withdraw or become emotionally distant from friends, family, and even romantic partners. The need to conceal the truth becomes an exhausting emotional burden, leading the victim to experience heightened anxiety and a constant sense of vigilance. It is as if they are living in two worlds, one where they maintain the facade of normalcy, and another where the truth is hidden behind a wall of silence and secrecy. For the family members who are unaware of the betrayal, the tension can be felt even if they don't understand its source. When a stepfather's infidelity remains hidden, it creates an undercurrent of discomfort that can manifest in subtle ways. Conversations become strained, with moments of awkward silence or a noticeable shift in the way family members interact with one another. The biological parent, for example, may sense that something is wrong but might be unable to pinpoint exactly what it is. This could lead to emotional distance between the stepfather and the rest of the family. Even if the biological parent remains oblivious to the betrayal, they may subconsciously react to the shift in dynamics, becoming more guarded or emotionally withdrawn. The family unit, once cohesive and trusting, now feels fractured, with tension permeating the air. It becomes increasingly difficult to maintain the facade of a happy, functioning family when the underlying truth is kept secret. The emotional toll of living with hidden secrets is not just internal, it ripples outward, affecting how family members interact and relate to each other. The victim of the betrayal may start to distance themselves from the family, either because they no longer trust the people around them or because they fear the emotional consequences of revealing the truth. They may find themselves questioning the authenticity of their relationships with others, wondering who else might be hiding their own secrets or who might betray them next. The fear of further emotional harm can lead the victim to withdraw entirely, shutting themselves off from the family and retreating into isolation. This withdrawal often creates a sense of alienation, where the victim feels alone in their pain, even when surrounded by people who may still care for them. The silence around the betrayal can suffocate any possibility of healing, as no one acknowledges the truth, and the emotional wounds continue to fester in secrecy. For the perpetrator, the stepfather in this case, the tension of keeping the secret can be equally damaging. They may feel a constant sense of guilt, shame, or fear of discovery, which can affect their behavior within the family. This emotional burden may lead to increased secrecy or even emotional manipulation as they try to maintain control over the situation. The stepfather might become defensive, more withdrawn, or attempt to gaslight the victim into thinking they are imagining things. The emotional strain of hiding such a secret can lead to destructive behavior patterns, further eroding trust within the family. Ultimately, hidden secrets create an atmosphere of constant tension that can stifle emotional growth, prevent healing, and damage relationships. The silence surrounding the betrayal prevents the victim and the family from addressing the issue openly, which would be necessary for any possibility of healing or reconciliation. In the absence of this open acknowledgement, the emotional wounds remain unhealed, and the family's ability to function as a unit becomes compromised. The secrecy surrounding the betrayal, whether intentional or born out of fear, perpetuates the emotional chaos, leaving everyone trapped in a web of unresolved tension and confusion.